This is Insurgency Modern Infantry Combat. What originally started off as one of the most realistic popular tactical shooters for the Source engine has now become obscure. For what was once popular for its time, its player base simply vanished. For a Source mod that was released in 2007, its accomplishments for demanding such realism in a game puts any AAA game released this year to shame. It wasn't something made by the industry, it was made by those that put their heart, passion, and soul into it. Andrew Spearin, also known as Argyle, spent his time in the Canadian Army between 2002 and 2007. However, according to him, he wasn't deployed. Yet it still directly influenced the development of Operation Cohen early on in his enlistment, which was the original project name for Insurgency back then. I was literally sitting in a trench thinking, hey, games get this wrong, so what can I do to make this right? The concept was thought of in 2002, as Half-Life's modding scene didn't have any realistic mods at the time. Spearin already had prior experience as a mapper for a couple of mods, Chechen Conflict and Northern Troubles, so Spearin had already built some level of experience in an attempt to start his mod this time. Some mods at the time also created a foundation to what the mod was going to be like. For example, Day of Defeat, Firearms, and Tour of Duty. Spearin also understood the good aspects of each mod, wanting to improve upon them or change something about it. The idea of simulating real-world combat without any sugarcoating, games, specifically first-person shooters that felt realistic, didn't convey the same as it would in real life. Obviously, due to technical limitations at the time, things felt different compared to now. Not entirely a full-on realistic game apart from general features associated to a game based on realism, but taking certain factors and implementing it in a way where it doesn't frustrate the player, because who would play those games, am I right, or am I each of their own, as one would say. There would have been drastic changes to achieve the level of realism that would be a core foundation to the mod itself, which eventually led to significant feature creep. Unfortunately, over the years of the mod's development, their once ambiguous vision constantly changed due to technical standpoints and where the setting was going to take place, as mentioned in countless interviews. At first, I wanted to make a mod focused on the modern Canadian Army, but figured that would go nowhere because it wasn't very interesting to a lot of people. The main vision was to provide a custom-made realistic infantry combat experience on modern battlefields. Spearin would then later rebrand the mod into Insurgency Modern Infantry Combat, focusing more on an American-Iraqi urban warfare setting, and a standard structure of two conflicting factions and nothing more despite more being planned earlier. From changing the Gold Source over to the Source engine, which housed plenty of well-known mods in the upcoming years, Spearin re-announced the entire project in 2004. In 2005, Jeremy Blum, the founder and project lead for Red Orchestra, alongside former developers from the mod, would eventually join the development team for Modern Infantry Combat.
My path was going somewhere else. And so around that time, I decided to leave the Red Orchestra project and pursue something on my own, separately. The idea was to bring a lot of the same design fundamentals that I had been a proponent of with Red Orchestra, such as realism, free aim weapons, and bring that to a more modern setting. And that's when I stumbled across another mod called Operation Counterinsurgency, which was run by Andrew Spearin. I decided to approach him to basically combine our forces instead of me going off and pursuing this new project on my own.
Somewhere down along the line, Spearin stepped down from his position and the team had to pick up all the work, doing minor changes to improve the gameplay. At last, 2008, the mod finally released on Steam. However, the mod slowed on its development and eventually stopped, leaving the mod abandoned.
What's up? I saw a shadow. Go on. What?
Insurgency isn't the next squad or an alternative to Counter-Strike Source by any means, but it sure as hell gets the idea of what war is. Destructive, overwhelming, and pure adrenaline. Everything in here is as hardcore as it gets. Every synonym you can think for the word intense is how you would describe the mod, with some parts being over-exaggerated. Don't take it with a grain of salt, take it as a fact. While its gameplay consists of a simplistic formula seen in most games, is it bare bones? Yeah, I would say that it isn't innovative when it tries to expand upon basic mechanics, but it does get the job done. It didn't have any unique gimmicks like Neotokyo or Dystopia did, but to be fair, those are different settings. This is a mod that focuses on certain aspects of realism, and man, that was done right. When comparing it to other games at the time which didn't have a full influence on the tactical shooter genre, Modern Infantry Combat stands close to games like America's Army 2, Armored Assault, Close Combat First to Fight, or the original Red Orchestra mod. It's not about depicting conflicts accurately or determining what about the gameplay should be realistic or not. What truly matters is the experience you have inside the core of the multiplayer. I would say that it takes most of its gunplay from Red Orchestra due to having multiple similarities and some of the devs being from said game. When I specifically mention realism, it's not about gun jamming, degradation, mag checks, or even directional damage, as that would take away the fun in a matter of seconds for casual players because that's leading into heavy realism. You can't make everything realistic, some things are just better in real life. The environment around you should feel believable, which plays into the role of what Insurgency's setting is about, infantry combat. This doesn't create a learning curve, but more or less a mod where anyone can boot it and expect to get into it easily. Before Call of Duty 4 or any Source mods released during that period, some games had ridiculous time to kill. Usually there's always a balancing issue, with higher means more tactical approaches and lower leaning towards fast-paced gameplay. Sometimes an enemy player you've come across would feel like shooting rubber fucking bullets. If I wanted my weapon to function as a pea shooter, I would have just played Plants vs Zombies. Some games would still keep that design. That wasn't the case with Insurgency. Your entire arsenal packs a punch, handled in a way where it doesn't take the fun of either going run and gun or a serious tactical milsim. Not at the same level as Project Reality's intense focus on attention to detail on a heavily outdated engine from 2002. Each side isn't borderline unbalanced, yet can be approached in as many ways as you want, brains over bronze by the way. It's way better than enemy territory's atrocious hit scan because I can't even land my own shots. Your bullets are as deadly as your wits. Seriously, I'm using a poetic line to show how serious I am. Every shot is painful, both the sound design and recoil feels aggressive, almost reminding me of how Battlefield's war tapes sound. At least my M9 doesn't sound like a M4 screeching in my ears. Each kill feels more rewarding in the process until you drop dead. Every firefight feels engaging enough for me to start implementing tactics I've learned from other games into Insurgency. Although most of my confrontations eventually end up into existential dread, with the feeling of being hunted down as you're the last one left, is a spine-chilling thought, man. You can feel the weight of each weapon even when you hipfire. Just having to control your mouse really shows the true nature of the weapons you have. It's one of those times where you appreciate how much detail went into everything. Finally, as all Source games include, bullet penetration. Where the mod shines is that most of its mechanics are minimalistic. Other games released around that time didn't have ADHD HUDs that overstimulate your brain because what the hell happened to gaming? Your HUD only displays your ammo counter when reloading. There isn't a crosshair as you have to depend on your iron sights, which I would say takes its idea from Ostron 4145. With no clutter covering half the screen, it makes focusing much more clear, especially when you're trying to get precise shots. Then there's the squad system where your equipment varies based on your role that plays heavily into the squad structure. It gives you the freedom rather than a systematic approach. Well, it still follows a system, but you get what I mean. Two different squads totaling to 16 players, and their squads have different weaponry and different in-play styles. Being a squad leader has its perks such as RTS-like commands where you can relay your squad to either objectives or call in reinforcements much earlier, and lastly a respawn system reminiscent of Battlefield 2. It's like a ticket system, kind of. You don't prioritize yourself, your squad mates come first. It's a must on having to rely on your squad, as without them there would be no progression whatsoever in any sort of gameplay. It wouldn't be another 5 years until we got a similar idea to what Medal of Honor Warfighter introduced, being a 2-player fireteam system. Great game by the way, spirited like the 2010 game though.
That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
Yo baby, I love this game. I hate this multiplayer, man. Insurgency's maps aren't complicated as most of the game modes and objectives are relatively straightforward. Every map is an all-rounder. I don't think I've had any issues in navigating in any of them. They're all well built and understands players approaching in multiple ways, but the lack of an open environment map in the map rotation, mainly in a setting like this, feels disappointing. The maps are big, but not to an extent. 2 years prior, Battlefield 2 had a larger scale warfare. While that was developed by a studio, Insurgency only had a couple of mappers to spare. However, it scratches that itch with Sinjar, one of the most hardest maps to ever exist. An open map without any cover from the beginning, having to push up the hill of each rush, leading to more chaotic and unpredictable gameplay from both sides. If neither decides to create a choke point, then all is well. This map was built to torture everyone in the game for no apparent reason, and whoever decided is a kind person. I played through an almost 2-hour session and it was horrible being flanked by the enemy left and right, fog being such a pain. It's mind-blowing how the map itself actually makes a difference in game. Sintra was deemed impossible to make in a multiplayer setting and was eventually reworked in its later installment as the tools got better. But what Sintra manages to do is make players work together. It requires heavy cooperation between each squad. I talked about Sintra the most as from a perspective of a level designer, it's really intriguing on how the layout came to be. I would say that smaller maps mean better level design. The other maps truly feel like a Middle Eastern war zone, Baghdad, Karkar, Ramadi, while most of them don't follow the 3-lane path and it's a conventional linear design, they all make you feel a part of it, part of the conflict itself, and that's the beauty of Insurgency. I love it when games try to put you into the focus of the world, intentionally or unintentionally, because it forces designers to create excruciating details no matter how minor it is for the maps themselves. I've expressed it in my Neotokyo video and I will continue to do so here and in any future video. Insurgency could have really benefited if vehicles were ever implemented, if it had not been cut, as the most fun comes out from pulling an SRAW in Battlefield 2, fighting for your life as you try and take down a tank. Now that's a thrilling moment. You don't need to simulate the frustration from it because you've already experienced it beforehand. It really demonstrates how color content can severely impact how the final product turns out to be. This is an example for it. Hopefully there will be some way to restore it or recreate it. What people see as flaws, I find it enjoyable. It's not perfect, but I like it the way it is. To revive a dead mod, you need a dedicated community, and to have a dedicated community, you need to you need to have a live mod.
Well, no shit, Sherlock.
But seriously, especially within the Source community, it's always been a task that lacked any real value whatsoever. Why should you play something nobody wants to play anymore? There are countless better games than that. How does it change the future or the potential the mod once had? How much more should we keep supporting something that hasn't garnered any attention in the last decade or so? These questions made me play Source games like Neotokyo, No More Room in Hell, Fistful of Frags, and even games outside the Source bubble. The community understands why these mods were so special and continue to thrive daily or somewhat weekly because there were just enough supporters. It's not a matter of it just being a niche There's always a side of the argument that if new people come into that space, the expectation of them actually learning and being interested in the game for a longer period is even lower. Also, people gatekeep for some reason. That is one of the hardest commitments to accomplish nowadays, mostly due to the fact that we're not in our early teens anymore. Sure, time zones exist and we can't always play at the right time, but still, the older we get, the more we start to lash towards nostalgia. Nostalgia is one hell of a drug, or a feeling that we usually can't immediately drop regardless of how much of an impact it had on our lives. That was the main issue with Modern Infantry Combat. I've never seen a game abandoned to the point where nobody wants to play it. This has always been an issue in gaming. It's not inherently a bad thing. Games disappear and only get remembered if someone else talks about it or some random YouTuber makes the next retrospective or quote-unquote video essay. Wait a minute, is that what this video is about? I've tried everything. Reddit post, a Discord Gamenight server, and the community tab on the Steam page. Every single attempt that's been done has resulted in an absolute failure. Maybe I wasn't trying enough or pushing past the point where people would start to remember that this mod even exists. But sometimes you just cannot push forward. The moments I had playing the mod were short-lived. There were times where I had fun or were frustrated that not enough people could experience what was once a breakthrough in the modding community. I most certainly did not grow up playing source mods, but I understand the reason why they were so highly regarded. How they made it through the limitations of an engine that was once so popular, which shocked people's minds, and it still does. What Insurgency is in need of is bot support and a revival of custom maps again. I'm sure by now everyone is aware of how crucial bots are needed, even for a mod built upon being played solely for the purpose of going online and pwning people. Bots were always present in those games. It's not a requirement, it's a necessity in keeping something alive for years to come. Hopefully, over the upcoming years, we might be able to see this happen without the need of waiting hours at the end for someone to join a server and leave when they get bored for 10 minutes after a slow 1v1 session. Sometimes nostalgia kills games in ways you least expect it to. I understood what Insurgency was supposed to be. It's a mod that's supposed to be fun, created by those that knew what the word fun meant. So where did all the fun go? Whenever people talk about source mods, there's a minority that dislikes how people praise these mods as if they're the holy grail of games, but not really. It's the fact that they were able to create an entirely new game based on an engine that is hell to even work on, which is why after a while, its sequel would still be on the source engine. It was that good, man. It was that good, gents. You didn't know how good you had it. Since it had a community workshop, they were aware that user-generated content keeps games alive forever. It somewhat immortalizes them to be played endlessly in many different ways, similar to how Battlefield 2 has such a big modding community. I would actually prefer the standalone sequel to the mod, but the mod keeps it simplistic. It's as true to being grounded as it gets. There's no point upgrade system, there's just you and your weapon, just like the founding fathers intended it to be. Sandstorm just didn't hit it right with me. It was Insurgency at its core, but my biggest gripe is unrelated to the gameplay itself, trust me. I love the gameplay. I just didn't like how slow it was compared to the previous games. It's the amount of DLCs it has. No game should have this many, unless it's your #1 Jiggly Boob fighting game. I still prefer the mod, but I don't know why. It is what it is. I'm a sucker for dead on arrival games or games that used to have a community. Well, that's Insurgency for you.
Takbir! Allahu Akbar!
I'm riding.
I see one. Yep. Oh, fuck.
Okay,
Oh, they're at spawn.
alright gentlemen, all day.
Explosive style, dude.
Yeah, I died at
Requesting reinforcements.
One dude. Hi.
Go on, go on.
Hey, I said. Fuck. He got killed so hard he fell to the stairs.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's fucking good.
Small take required.
Are you entertained yet?
Requesting reinforcements.
What the fuck? Oh. I saw that. Fuck.
We're back, it's so back. We have again 3 versus. Oh, I got
Shit. On that shit.
Is there something to California?
again the machine.
Fuck you. Good one.
Have you heard elocution? I don't remember it all. The man
Oh wow.
Wait, I just saw the bullet.
Yeah, team killed me. It killed you. It kicked you after 4 of them.
Okay. What about
Copy that. No, it's still securing. Block one's in.
Got one. Loading.
Oh, I'm still holding down there. Okay, they're gonna eventually. Oh. Saw it any time.
Where am I aiming?
what the fuck is this map?
Go. Flash up.
Yep.
Oh god!
Other side.
Other side of the house.
Yeah, they're in C, guys.
They're in C, they're inside.
They're going.
Good
Oh,
pussy
oh,
power,
fuck.
my friend. Oh god, we gotta get back in there.
Gonna understand, come and get it. Boy, get to it, hit it. Shirley jacked up, double barrel, shot, either you're there or you're not. Two bolts in my man.